Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show that's all about speaking your truth, sharing your stories, and sparking the conversations that matter most. I'm your host, Rodney W. Collins, and this is the Speak On It Show. On this show, we dive deep into the thoughts, experiences, and ideas that shape our world. It's a place where voices are heard, perspectives are celebrated, and discussions are not just encouraged, but cherished. Whether it's culture, politics, personal growth, or just life's everyday adventures, we're here to explore it all. We've got engaging interviews, thought-provoking discussions, and sometimes we might even stir the pot a little bit. Speak On The Show is where we challenge the status quo, celebrate diversity, and engage in conversations that make us think, laugh, and grow. So get ready to be inspired, get ready to connect, and most importantly, get ready to speak your truth. Without further ado, let's jump into today's episode. It's time for the Speak On It Show with your host, Rodney W. Collins. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome, everybody. I'm Rodney W. Collins here on the Speak On It Show. First and foremost, giving honor to God who allows me to come at you in this manner on a weekly basis. How's everybody doing out there? Hopefully everybody had a good week. Thank you for tuning in this morning. Got a good morning already. My brother, Terrence Collins, good morning, my brother. Appreciate you. Thanks for tuning in. Thank you for your continued support. Thank you for being my brother. Let's just cut through the fat. And thank you for being my brother. So we're broadcasting live this morning on Facebook and YouTube, 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific, every Saturday morning here on the Rodney W. Collins Speak On It Show. And I want to say thank you to everybody who sent me feedback last week about the show. As I mentioned last week, I'm starting to post more on TikTok. So if you don't catch the show, you can catch the snippets on TikTok. And then you can come back and listen to the show after the fact and everything. And also, I'm looking at going audio again with the show. If for those that don't want to see the visual, want to go audio, have a place where you can listen to audio only if that's what you choose to do. However you get your podcast, that's what I'm trying to do, is put it out there for everybody to see and understand. Now, also on the YouTube and Facebook, it's the Rodney W. Collins channel. I forgot to tell you that. 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific every Saturday morning. Also working on some things for the Life Logistics coaching that we'll have under this channel as well. Stay tuned for that. I'm still in the works on that. So we get these formalities out the way this morning. We are at the end of May. We're at the end of May. That means we're almost 6 months in to the year of 2025. Think about that. Almost 6 months in already into 2025. There's a lot of things going on, a lot of things going on. And I know last week we talked about, in the beginning, I talked about people graduating. Shout out to all the graduates and everything like that. But I wanted to touch on this because I went to a graduation party for a good friend of mine's daughter. And while I was there, I started having conversation with, there were 4 individuals that were standing around, 3 guys, 1 female. Of the 4, the young female graduated last year. She's in school for nursing. One of the young men is at Howard going to school, and I can't remember what he told me his major was, but he's in the band as well, plays saxophone. So we got talking about that. But then the other 2 individuals that were there, 2 young men that graduated, are still trying to figure it out. And I want to put this out there because, I'm still trying to figure it out. Let me start there. I'm still trying to figure it out at the tender age of 59. I'm still trying to figure this thing out called life. So after having a conversation with them and the 2 individuals that jumped out at me were those trying to figure it out. And you try to impose or put some, knowledge or some wisdom upon them of the things you've gone through and things you've dealt with when, first got out of high school, going into the unknown as far as what you want to do, whether you go to college or anything like that. But the one young man told me that he thought about going into the military. So I asked him, why would you want to go in the military? And he said, well, I thought it was it may be a good thing. So I imparted my wisdom and my partner that was with me, he imparted his wisdom because we're both retired military. And what I told this young man, I want everybody to hear this because I think it's something we need to let our kids know. And anybody that you know that may be going through something or trying to figure it out, as I said. One question I asked the young man that wanted to go in the military was, so you're trying to figure it out. I get that. We all have to go through that. I said, but what I would ask you was, while you're trying to figure it out, do you think that it would be easier for you to figure out if you took the path that you're thinking about taking? This is the one that was talking about going to the military. And the reason I asked him that, I said, because I also put the caveat in there, while you're trying to figure it out, why not get paid and maybe go somewhere that you've never experienced before to open your eyes to there's a whole new world, whole world out there that you haven't even scratched the surface of. So why not take that opportunity that you're, now I'm not trying to push him into the military. He said he was thinking about it. So what I told him was, why not take that step to go ahead and join the military? All the things you've heard, the travel and everything like that, take advantage of that. And I said, why not figure it out while getting paid and while being able to go somewhere you've never been, rather than staying stuck here in the same place while you're trying to figure it out. And I put this caveat in there for him. I said, because while you're trying to figure it out, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years can go by that quick while you're trying to figure it out. And you'll look back after those 4 years and say, I'm still in the same place. Now I say that because I'm not trying to push anybody to have their kids join the military. That's a choice that they have to make. I'd rather people go in the military who choose to go rather than forced to go. But I say this to anybody that's trying to make a decision now, young kids, even grown adults. If you're trying to make a decision about where you want to be, where you want to go, or how you want to do it, sometimes it's best to remove yourself from the environment that you're comfortable in. As we always say, sometimes you got to get comfortable being uncomfortable. Step out from being comfortable, step out somewhere where you're uncomfortable, and watch the opportunities open up in front of you. There's ways that it can be done. I mean, we always talk about we don't have the money, or they don't have the money, or they, financials, and I get that. But the one thing I wanted to impart in that young man was, if you go in the military, you're getting paid, you're getting to see things, and you'll never be able to, you'll get an experience that you probably never thought you would have. Whether they send you Montana, Wyoming, overseas, the biggest part of it is don't get stuck just because you don't choose to be unstuck. Take a chance, step out on faith. Your parents have instilled in all of us the fact of what life is about, but you're going to have to learn it on your own. There's going to be some bumps and bruises. But you got to step out and take that chance, because while you take that chance, while you come out of that comfort zone that you're in right now, it's going to open your eyes to a whole new world that you never thought you could be a part of. Just something I wanted to bring up, because talking to those four individuals, young kids, and I thought about myself. When I went in the military, I knew I was going to the military when I was in 9th grade. I didn't go right after I graduated. I waited until August, signed up, and didn't leave until December. But I knew what I wanted to do. But I look back sometimes and say, if I hadn't joined the military, where would I be? With those experiences I experienced, would I have experienced them? Now, everybody's path is different. And nobody's path should be compared to someone else's path. That's where we get caught up. Well, because I hear people say to me sometimes, man, I wish I'd have went in the military like you did. No. Hold that back. Your path is your path. Stop comparing your path to somebody else's path, because even though I was in the military, I went through the same trials and tribulations, probably even more or some less than everybody else or anybody else. So never get caught up in comparing your life and your path to somebody else's path. Because though somebody else's path may look like it's been paved in gold, sometimes that person whose path looked like it was paved in gold had to make a lot of sacrifices and went through a lot of turbulence on that path. It's like that old saying that says, if you could take all your problems and lay them down beside somebody else's and pick their problems up and move on, you would probably run back to grab your own problems. Just something I wanted to put out there after talking to those grads, because I know we talked about, celebrating your wins last week, but that conversation with those young individuals really opened my eyes to the point of, I don't want people to get stuck because they don't feel they can't get unstuck. And that's even with us as adults. Like I said, I'm 59 and I'm still trying to figure it out. And we'll probably be trying to figure it out until we take our last breath. But don't give up on trying to figure it out. And don't think you've all got it already figured out, because life comes at you fast. Let's get these good mornings out there. April Wheaton, good morning, my sis. Good morning. Good morning. Brian Hoodie, my brother. Good morning. Good morning. Appreciate you. Big Al, my brother. Appreciate you. Terry Perkins, indeed. Yeah. It's one of them things, man, where you talk to these young kids. Sometimes you get in these conversations and you realize let me say it this way, and I appreciate that, Perk. Let me say it this way. There's times when we have conversation with this young generation, and we say to them, we look at them and say, man, this young generation is lost. They said the same thing about our generation. They said the same thing about your mother's and father's generations. They said the same thing about your grandparents' generation. They say that about every generation because we have gotten to a point where we start understanding things differently, than when we look at them, we think that they're lost, when in fact, they're in the same position we were. We just see it differently because of where we sit now. If you look back at your 18, 19, 20-year-old self, you were lost to a certain extent. But at the same time, you had people come to you and try to instill some wisdom in you to get you to that next level. And that's what each of us should be doing when we have these conversations with the young kids. Rather than looking at them like they're lost, try to help them get on the path so they can find themselves. Jackie Banks, good morning. Good morning, my friend. Appreciate you. So we're going to go ahead and get into this. I appreciate y'all, man. This is it's something I'm passionate about when we talk about these young folks, because I remember my time as being a young, struggling young man and not knowing which way I was going and thought I had it figured out, but had no clue about life. Those are the things that we need to take into account when we're sitting there and we're chastising these young kids and looking at them like they ain't got it together, where in all reality, we never really had it together either at that time. All right. So let's get into this. In the news, and I'm going to start off with it. Let's get these other good mornings. Good morning, Julie Keener Piro, my sister. Good morning. Appreciate you. Sabrina Wooten. Wooten. Good morning, cuz. Appreciate you. Got a lot of good mornings coming in. I appreciate y'all. Keep on going, because we're going to have some conversation here that y'all should chime in on and put some input in. But let me start off with this in the news this morning. Last week, I talked about the OBBB, the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, or whatever you want to call it. And we got into the nitty-gritty of how it's going to affect Medicare and everything. But this week, you had a Republican Senator, Joni Ernst of Iowa, at a town hall meeting. And in the town hall, the people were upset about the Medicaid cuts and different things like that. And one thing that she said that kind of jumped out at a lot of people, Trent Branch, good morning, my brother, that jumped out at a lot of people was that they were asking, in the town hall, they would say, hey, you cutting Medicaid, it's going to kill us. There are people in this room right now, because you're cutting Medicaid, that are going to die. Her response to her constituents in Iowa in this town hall was this, and I quote, well, we're all going to die. End of quote. Let me say it again. So you're in a town hall with your constituents that are concerned about the Medicaid cuts and concerned about the people going to be affected and how many people may die because they can't get the medical care they got and everything. And your response as a politician, and not only as a politician, but as a human being is, well, we're all going to die. This lets you know that there is no compassion, none whatsoever, for people as a whole when we talk about politics at this time. Now, we can always go back and look and say they didn't care about us, they ain't never cared about us, and that's true to a certain extent. Excuse me. But they're saying the quiet part out loud nowadays, and it's just really makes you look at something a little different. But what I want to bring to your attention, and everything's on the Medicaid and everything, and I talked about it last week, and I get that, because that's what's going to affect us directly right now if this passes. It's at the Senate, right? But there's something else that could be detrimental to all of us in a different way. And we talk about the justice system. We talk about how this president or this person in the office has this immunity where he can't be held accountable for the things he does while he's in office and so on and so forth. But something is buried in this OBB act, bill, whatever you want to call it. It's something that could affect us all long term, because it's going to give this person and other people in his position and senators and all these people or people in business untethered access. They're going to be free to do whatever they want if this part of the bill stays in this bill and it gets passed. And what it is this. And it says the new rule could weaken court power. A little known section of federal law, section 70302, says courts can't enforce orders or punish disobedience unless a financial bond was posted when the injunction was issued. That means if a court tells a president, agency, or individual to stop something, it may not matter unless someone put money on the table. This could impact Trump's gag orders, Biden's executive policies, or state lawsuits against the federal government. Bottom line, no bond, no enforcement. This tiny rule could shift the power balance between courts, presidents, and the people. Now, let me put this in layman's terms for you, because I know that sounds like a lot, but we're talking about 70302, which is in this bill. For everyday citizens, say you're involved in a legal dispute. Say you had an accident or you're suing somebody or whatever. And it says maybe your neighbor sues you and gets a temporary restraining order against you, asking the court to stop you from doing something like building a fence or selling a property. Normally, under the old rule, Rule 65C of the Federal Rules of Civil Procedure, that person is supposed to post a bond, money held by the court, in case it turns out the order was unfair or caused damages. Under this new rule, which is 70302, if they don't post that bond and you ignore the restraining order, the court cannot, now this is where it gets tricky, the court cannot use federal money to punish you for contempt, like fines or jail time for ignoring the order. Bottom line, this protects regular people from being unfairly punished when the proper legal process, posting a bond, wasn't followed. For businesses, if a business is slapped with a court order, but the party getting the order didn't post the required bond, the business might feel safer challenging or ignoring the order, knowing the court's ability to punish them is limited. How it affects judges and lawyers. Judges will have to make sure that bonds are posted before issuing orders if they want those orders to be enforceable. Lawyers must be extra careful to request a bond or they risk the order being toothless. For the government or the president, now this is where you really need to pay attention. Let's say a federal agency or even the president is hit with a restraining order from a lawsuit, maybe one that tries to block a new policy or executive action. If no bond was posted when that order was issued, the government or the president's team could ignore the order. The courts couldn't enforce the contempt charges using federal money. That means if executive officials could defy court orders more easily unless the bond rule was properly followed. This gives the president or federal agencies more leeway to resist enforcement of certain court orders if technical rules like posting the bond weren't met. Now, that's a lot, but I want to break it down to you like this. Let me put it in layman terms what I understand it. We've seen these gag orders, these executive orders going out, and then we've had courts push back on, somebody will go put a lawsuit in against, this administration, just say for this immigration, just for immigration. Let's start there. If the people putting the lawsuit up don't put the bond up, then the bond money can't be taken from federal money in order to put the bond. It has to come from the person. Meaning which, in most cases, and I'm trying to find the amount. In most cases, say something along the lines of the immigration. The bond could be millions of dollars. Millions of dollars. Now, I want to ask you this. Who do you know that can just come out and put a bond for $1 million on the books because you're trying to sue the government? Who do you know can come forward and put a bond up when you're trying to sue your neighbor? May not be millions of dollars, but who has that money where they can just put that money on the bond? And then if you lose, they end up getting the money to cover their court costs, or they can come back and say, because it was a frivolous lawsuit, they can come against you to pay their court fees and lawyer fees and so on and so forth. Now, it may not sound like it's an issue for you per se, but this is going to give anyone in the administration unadulterated access to do whatever they want to do, because they know by this being passed that any lawsuits, any injunctions or anything that these judges want to do, if there's no bond posted for these injunctions by whoever's putting the lawsuit in front of the judge has no say. They can't take the money like they used to and put it up from taxpayer money. They're trying to eliminate that so these things can go through without a problem. It's scary. And the reason it's scary is because we already know the Supreme Court gave this man immunity for anything that is done in the office, president per se. Not just this one, but because of this one, they gave this office immunity against anything they consider to be done in official time in this office. Everything that's been being done up to this point by executive orders and so on and so forth, many of these executive orders have been illegal, even though they're still going through with it. Case in point, when they told the administration to stop shipping people overseas to these jails and everything, and they still had planes take off to take these people to El Salvador or wherever they were taking them, there was an injunction at that time they didn't follow, but they're not being held accountable. By this, that injunction would never even see the light of day, because who has the money, millions of dollars, to put up to stop these things that are illegal when this administration is doing it or future administrations are doing it? Pay attention to how the Senate deals with this budget bill, because it's going to dictate a lot of things that go on. And as I said, if you're a business owner or you're an everyday person, you may not look like this is going to affect you in any way. But I'm going to say it by reading it. This is what I came up with, and this is my own thought process. You know how we talk about the immigration issue and everything going on, right? But then at the same time, we were talking about how they were getting rid of DEI and how it's going to affect us as a people, civil rights, all the different things we talked about on this show. One of the things that I see, if this comes to fruition, is the fact that they can and will try to eliminate anything that is in the Civil Rights Act, because there's no way anybody's going to be able to push back because of the dollar amount they're going to have to put up for bond. So if they decide to do an executive order or try to eliminate everything like that, and someone wants to sue, where's this money going to come from? NAACP doesn't have that type of money. ACL doesn't have that type. American Civil Liberty doesn't have that type of money. When you talk about the amount you're going to have to put up for bond, be aware of what's going on in the fine details of these bills when we're paying attention to them. As I mentioned, until you start reading and getting into it, you really don't know what these bills. A lot of times you hear pork. They say these bills are filled with pork, which is trying to take care of a certain a certain representative or somebody's constituents in their hometown dealing with farming or something like that. This here can affect all of us in so many ways. And we have to pay attention to these things, and we have to pay attention to who's running for these elections in 2026. We have an election coming up. Don't lose sight of that. Midterm elections coming up. Don't lose sight of that. We have these things coming up, and we really, really, really need to be paying attention to what's going on. As they said, do not pay attention to the man behind the curtain in The Wizard of Oz. Well, we need to be paying attention to the man behind the curtain, the man in front of the curtain, the man moving the curtain, and the man created the curtain. We need to be paying attention to everybody and anybody in these processes right now, because what we do is we get caught up with distracting on one thing, and I'm going to get into the distractions in this next bit. When we get distracted on these certain things, that we're not paying attention to the other things. That's just, it just, case in point. And I'll say this now. I watched and I've looked at a lot of different sites. I look at the Griot, I look at the Root, because I get my news from, African American Black news sources. But I've seen a lot of information geared around Larry Hoover. And for y'all to know, anybody that doesn't know who Larry Hoover, co-founder of Chicago gang gangster disciples, who was sent to prison in 1973 for ordering the murder of a drug dealer, had his sentence commuted by Donald Trump. And there's everybody that's all up in arms about this. They happy about it. You got people celebrating. You got other people saying, what's that about? But he's not being released. He's not being released on these pardons like the Chrisleys and the people avoiding tax paying money and people that did fraud in it. He's not being released because he has 150 to 200 years in state jail. So he's going from the federal to the state. So, and he's only being commuted, which means they removed his sentence. However, they did not remove the charges showing that he was guilty of what they say he did. But we're paying attention to that, and then they say that Donald Trump is taking care of black folks and everything like that. No, this just window dressing, because he didn't do for Larry Hoover what he did to the other, what he did for Chrisley, and then where they got pardoned, or the January 6 people where they got pardoned, and none of those charges would ever show up unless they already had charges on the books for something else in the federal courts. Because even though you've been pardoned at the federal level, doesn't matter at the state level if you've been charged at that level. So while we're caught up and people out here, all Larry Hoover, free Larry Hoover, and all these type things, come on. Free Larry Hoover. Do people know what Larry Hoover did to our own community? Let's start there. I'm going to get into that in a minute, but to our own community, we're idolizing a killer, a drug dealer. Yeah, we got our priorities wrong. But we're gonna get into this in a minute. So before that, let's go on and get this out the way. Fellas, it's time to elevate your grooming game. Introducing Respected Roots, the premium beard care line designed with black men in mind. Because your beard isn't just facial hair, it's a statement, a symbol of confidence, style, and strength. All right, let's talk about keeping your beard sharp and on point. First step, sculpting. Fresh lines are everything. Keeping it clean and defined sets the foundation for a great beard. Once I've got the shape locked in, it's time to cleanse. The Respected Roots Beard Wash gets rid of dirt and buildup without drying out my beard. It leaves my beard feeling soft and refreshed. Next up, the beard oil. This is where the hydration magic happens. I massage it in, making sure it gets to the skin underneath. It keeps my beard moisturized and smelling fresh all day. And finally, the beard butter. This locks in all the moisture, smooths out any frizz, and gives my beard that healthy, polished shine. Look at this. It's soft, full, and ready to dominate. From sculpting to styling, Respected Roots has everything you need to take your beard to the next level. Gentlemen, your beard deserves respect, and respect starts with Respected Roots. Use the link to grab yours today and receive 15% off. Trust me, your beard will thank you. respectiveroots.com/Rodney55428. respectiveroots.com/Rodney55428. Go there, buy you some products, keep your beard right, get it tight. You know what I'm saying? Just do that. You get a 15% off if you use that. Right, respectiveroots.com/Rodney55428. Do that. So let's get into this. So I found this article on the Griot, I think it is. And it jumped out at me because it's something that we need to talk about. And I got a straight talk on something that I want to talk about after this. But the article starts off is by Lawrence Ware. And it starts off saying how Diddy and Shannon Sharp's messes are teaching black men that unchecked sexual desires and choices will ruin their lives. And then it says famous black men have a history of making bad choices in relationships. And then they went into it. There's the 17-year-old that Marvin Gaye met and married. Let's get into this before I give my dissertation of what's going on here. And it says this conversation has been a long time coming. We didn't have it when we found out what was going on with Bill Cosby. This discussion still didn't happen when the news broke about R. Kelly, with Diddy's every embarrassing and perhaps illegal move being laid out to the world in court. Maybe it's a good time to talk about what our lack of self-control is getting us. Of course, it's not just Diddy. In April, we witnessed the near implosion of Shannon Sharp's media career because of an ill-advised relationship with an OnlyFans model. Just last week, Smokey Robinson was accused of sexual assault, and now he's under criminal investigation. These are all men who allegedly allowed their sexual desires to get out of hand, but this is not new. Famous black men have a history of making bad choices in relationships. There's a 17-year-old that Marvin Gaye met and married. There's that time Bobby Womack's wife shot at him because he was having an affair with his stepdaughter. And Chuck Berry, well, you just Google what that dude was into. My fingers are too holy to type what he liked. The common denominator, these men lack discipline. They seemingly let their sexual desires run unchecked, and they either outright ruin their lives or their legacy suffered because of it. Let's be clear. This is not kink shaming. If you have consent and you're not breaking the law, black men should feel free to do whatever they want in the bedroom. Now we don't need to know what it is. Stop getting on the internet and telling all your business. But if you and your partner want to spice things up, fine. That's not a problem. The issue is that too many black men cross the line. Now, this is all coming from an article talking about black men, their desires, and so on and so forth. Josh Boyd, my brother, good morning, good morning. And then it goes in and says, if a woman says no, that should be the end of it. If at any time while you're being intimate, she says stop, same rules apply. And if you're a 50-something NFL Hall of Famer who is trying to jumpstart a media career, maybe don't mess with a woman 30 years younger than you. And if you must, at least have her sign an NDA. This gets us to the heart of the matter. Diddy and Sharp lack discipline. And I'm not going to continue reading this because I got some opinions on this. And I'm going to start off like this. It's not, in my opinion, that Diddy, Shannon Sharp, Marvin Gaye, any of the people they talked about or addressed in here, or anybody you may know, lack discipline or lack discipline and went unchecked in their sexual desires. What happens in R. Kelly, let's go to R. Kelly too. What happens in these instances, in my opinion, is that these people gain money, which makes them think they have power, and they demand respect. Money, power, respect. Money, power, respect. We hear it all the time. Now, mind you, in the Diddy case, in the Shannon Sharp case, these weren't black females. These weren't African-American black females that they were accused of doing something to. Cassie was the main one. There's other ones, but Cassie was the main one. And then you have Shannon Sharp with the OnlyFans girl, whatever. So this article talking about that unchecked sexual desires and choices will ruin your lives. The bottom line is you have to know who you are in this life, because I find it funny that they talk about this in this manner, because there's so many things that happen across the board, no matter if you're black, white, Hispanic, whatever nationality you may be, that these things happen. But we concentrate on when African-American black males or black women do this or do things that they don't think is characteristic of who they should be. And we pinpoint and look directly at us as a people and try to put it in this bucket of we're undisciplined or we have no shame or any of these type of things. These type of things that these people are being accused of have been going on for many, many years. The difference now is the fact that you have social media and news outlets that continue to report this daily, without hesitation. And it's not the fact of who did it. It's not the fact of what they did. It's what's going to sell. Now, do we have people that have unchecked sexual desires? Hell yeah, there's a whole bunch of them. However, when you get to the point of understanding how media works, as Malcolm X said years ago, when you understand how media works, this is what we get to. And then when we, as a people, decide we're going to write articles about our own people and diminish them, but we don't talk about the other folks that do it that just don't look like them, that's where my issue comes in. Now, am I defending anything that any of these people did? Never. If they're guilty, they're guilty. But I think we got to have a balance when it comes to reporting about this stuff and stop making it seem like these African-American black males are the only ones that have been caught up with things like this. Because the only ones we usually hear about are athletes, entertainers, influencers, those type of things. You don't hear about the everyday guy. The everyday guy that's raping people in his community and stuff like that. You don't hear about them. I just say that because I want to get into this next part. Defending the indefensible. Defending the indefensible. And as I mentioned, I talked about Diddy, talked about Shannon Sharp, R. Kelly, all these different people that have been caught up in these type of, not conspiracy theories, but these type of trials, issues in their lives because of their sexual desires or their money, power, respect mentality, different things like that. But I want to take it a little deeper. I want to take it just a little bit deeper. Frank Miller, good morning, my brother. Appreciate you. I want to take it a little bit deeper. Defending the indefensible. Why do we, as black men, sometimes defend the indefensible? Why do we rally around those who commit crimes even when there's no justifications for their actions? Is it loyalty? Is it a deep-seated distrust of the system? Or is it because we've seen white men commit the same crimes and walk free, as I just mentioned? And I want to go here for a minute. Let's go here for a minute. Probably anybody and everybody that's listening to this show today or will listen to it later on would know exactly what I'm talking about. When we were young, growing up in our neighborhoods, and I'm not going to say the hood because everybody wants to go down, in our neighborhoods, and we had our buddies, friends, cousins that were out selling drugs. Let's just go here for a minute. Selling drugs in our community to our people. Watch this now. And while they were doing this, we seen the benefits of what they were gaining by how they dressed, how their apartments were set up, all these different things. And we defended, to a certain extent, we defended that lifestyle because of the conditions that they were growing up in. But you defended the indefensible because everybody they were selling to, some of those folks got addicted. Some of those people overdosed. Some of those people are in institutions right now with issues in their brain because there was something laced in the marijuana they were selling and so on and so forth. I'll give you a prime example. And I'm going to go to a celebrity now. And I've talked about this person many times, but I'm going to bring him up now in this conversation. We put a person like Jay-Z up on this pedestal. I say we because as a community, because of what he done in the rap game, and he's married to Beyonce, he's doing the NFL shows. I want you to think about all the people that have been impacted by the drugs he was selling in New York that he glamorized when he was a rapper. All the families that were affected by him selling drugs in the neighborhood that nobody wants to talk about because they want to forget his past, but they'll hold on to yours. See, we all got a past, and we all got to look at who we impacted in the things we did in our past. But we got to get out of this mentality of defending the indefensible. Just because white folks aren't held to the same account as we are when they do something doesn't mean that we can look at Diddy, Shannon Sharp, or R. Kelly, or anybody we name and think that it's okay. We're going to defend them just because of how they look. Do you know, by doing that, you're minimizing the lives of everybody that's affected by what they do in the community. For too long, we have chosen to overlook the things that have impacted our community by us and want to put everything on those people. The white man holding me down. He got his foot on my neck. All these different things we hear, but we were destroying our own communities from the inside out. And we're quick to defend the indefensible. Why? Because they look like us? I refused. Roy Winston, my brother, good morning. I refuse. And I'll say it this way. I'm a big R. Kelly fan. Love his music to death, still play his music to this day. But I refuse to defend the wrongs that he did just because I'm a fan of his music. See, we got to get out of this either or and look at the factor of how this is affecting us as a people when we get into these things. Case in point, let's start with the facts. Black men are incarcerated at 5.5 times the rate of white men. Even with recent criminal justice reform, the racial disparities in sentencing remain stark. The numbers don't lie. Justice has never been equal. Take the case of any black man that was sentenced to decades in prison for a nonviolent offense, while a white man with a similar charge walks free. Or look at the disparities in sentencing for drug-related crimes, as I just mentioned. Black men have historically received harsher sentences for the same offenses. When you've lived in a world where justice has never felt fair, how do you trust the system? You don't. And so the instinct kicks in to protect our own even when they're wrong. To protect our own even when they're wrong. I'm going to bring up this, and I've said this before, but some people get pissed, but I don't care today because it's straight talk. I remember back in the day, we used to hear the mothers of the drug dealers or criminals or people that were committing crimes. Not my baby. My baby would never do that. Oh, my baby wasn't doing that. We all know that woman. We all know that. We know we grew up watching her defend her son when what she was defending him for was indefensible. But because it was her son, she defended him. But the overall effects in our communities of what was going on, nobody wanted to talk about that until something went wrong. Because the other part of it is, as much as that mother or the family try to deny what their son or their daughter may have been doing, let's not just put this on black men, there's black women out there that were selling too. While they were trying to defend what they were doing or act like they didn't know what they were doing, they knew exactly what they were doing because they were reaping the benefits. But they didn't say anything. Why? Because they were reaping the rewards of what was indefensible that their child was doing in the community and to the community. But we get wrapped up in looking at things of, well, they get away with this. How come we're not getting away with it? We got to get out of this comparison mindset. Don't do the crime, you don't do the time. Now, you've heard me talk about many times on here about people being falsely imprisoned for crimes they didn't commit. I stand on that. But we got to stop defending people that we know have done the crime because we've seen them do the crime, or we knew what they were doing, and we say, well, he shouldn't have got that much time. What do you do? He was just selling a little weed. Just selling a little weed. But here's where it gets complicated in protecting those who have caused harm and refusing to hold each other accountable. Are we doing more harm than good? Are we perpetrating the very cycles we want to break? There's a psychological effect here, a communal trauma response. Black men have been criminalized just for existing. So when one of us actually commits a crime, then reaction isn't just about the act itself, it's about the larger picture. And the question we ask, would he have been punished this harshly if he wasn't black? The answer too often, no. And I get it. But here's the real question. How do we shift this narrative? How do we balance defending the rights without excusing the wrong? Defending the right without excusing the wrong. We can talk about the system all we want. We can fight against the system all we want and everything, but that doesn't justify the wrong that is being done by the people that are doing it just because we feel that they're being unjustly done wrong to or sentenced harsher for the crime they did because they're black and we want to defend it. I don't know everything that's come out in this Diddy trial. But as I said in the beginning, if he's done these things, he should be held accountable. I heard somebody the other day bring up, well, what about Epstein? What about Epstein? Whatever Epstein did, he should be held accountable for. He ended up hanging himself, so they say, I don't know all, hey, it is what it is. But if Diddy did these things, he should be held accountable as well. The thing about it is we look at it and we say, wait a minute. Diddy was doing this to his own people. That don't matter. Let's be real now. The death threats, the different things that he went through to try to contain and control people, the death threats and all these different things. We want to overlook that? We're defending the indefensible. And it's something in us that causes us to do that because of everything we know to be true in this country up to this day. When we talk about court, when we talk about the justice system, when we talk about different things, but here's the thing. And I want to be clear when I say this. Here's the problem with that. We give some of these people the benefit of the doubt when it shouldn't even be in the conversation. We tend to stand on principle of if they're black, I'm all in. But sometimes we're wrong when we do that. Sometimes we're wrong when we do that. Because what it does is it says no matter what you do, this is a false narrative that comes out, is that no matter what you do as a black man, our community is going to stand by you. No matter what you do. That's wrong. We got to get better with that. We got to get better with that. Now, I'm not saying that everybody that's ever been sentenced as a black man has been sentenced the right way or he didn't do the crime or anything. You've heard me talk about these things on here. I'm talking about ones we know by the evidence that's been shown that they did the crime. I'm talking about the ones we know that did these things when we were younger and we seen it. They were the friends, cousin, family, whatever you want to call it, and knew what they were doing in the community and chose to look the other way. Or we glamorized it because of them being able to wear the fashion, or they had a nice car, or they would break you off for $20 or $25 sometimes, or you knew somebody that was stealing clothes at the mall and you told them, hey, next time you go give me a 3430, whatever you get, some of them Jordache or some Cavariccis or whatever. We played into it, but you can't defend the indefensible. Let's talk about solutions. Reform efforts have helped lower incarceration rates for black men and women, but the fight isn't over. We need to advocate for fair sentencing, hold our own accountable, and punish for systemic change. Hold our own accountable. Let's ask a scenario here. This is a scenario. You know somebody that's doing something wrong. You know it's wrong. You see him go get arrested or whatever. He goes in and he ends up getting out. You don't know the victims. You don't know who it was done to or anything like that. But you defend this person because you know this person and you feel that he was done wrongly because he was black. In your eyes. It's just an example. And then he gets out. He continues to do the same thing he was doing. And then he does it to somebody that you love. Now what? Are you going to defend it? Because it was okay when he was doing it and it wasn't somebody that you knew or was affecting your family or somebody in your family or somebody you love. You defended him. We all got sisters. Hell, we got brothers. Let's just be real, because they've said things about things that happen to men in these situations. But if it's somebody that you know, that this person you defended at one time did the same thing to somebody you love, now what? You can't defend the indefensible. I don't care what color. I don't care what walk of life. I don't care if it's a family member. You can defend them to the fact of he's not the person that you knew. You can defend them to the point that that's your family and you'll not talk against them. But if you can't talk against them, then sure don't be talking for them. Because right is right and wrong is wrong. And we get caught up sometimes too much on the fact of I'm going to stand by him because they look like me. It's not how we were raised. We were raised with right is right and wrong is wrong. Stand for fairness. Stand for accountability. But real strength isn't in blind loyalty. It's in truth. It's in integrity and in breaking cycles that have kept us shackled for generations. Defending the indefensible. Now, I know there's some people out there probably like, man, why you had to bring up my cousins and them who used to sell drugs in the streets and all that kind of stuff? Because we can all relate. We can all relate. But the thing about it is, like I think it was Biggie said, don't get high on your own supply. You never seen them get caught up. Never seen them get addicted in most cases. But they were addicting everybody around you. And we defend that. In some ways, we defend that. Not a good look. Not a good look. And stop doing these comparisons. Well, these people didn't happen to them, and why is it? Stop defending the indefensible. Each case is different. Each situation is different. Think about it before you do it. I'm not saying anybody that I mentioned is guilty. I'm not saying any of them didn't do what they say they did. No. The bottom line is we have to stop defending the indefensible. If you know somebody that's on video doing something and you say, that ain't him, you're defending the indefensible. I mean, you know, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a judge, but I've been around long enough to understand how the game goes. Stop defending the indefensible. Yeah. Let's get into this. Let's go. Mind, body, and soul, mind, body, and soul. It's year 2025. We're dealing with 3 P's: power, purpose, possibility. Purpose, power, possibility. I'm sorry. And that's what we're dealing with this year. But this is more of a coach's corner. But I want to bring it to you like this, because it's something that I had to deal with, that I had to recognize as time went on in my life, of things that, well, let's just get into it. You'll pick up on it. What are you running from? Think about it. What are you running from? Because a lot of times we think we're running to something. What are you running from? I want to bring this up because I remember a time in my life when I used to run every day. 5 miles, Monday through Friday. Sometimes 10 to 12 on the weekend. Just running. What I realized later on in life was, and someone mentioned to me one day and I laughed about it. They said, man, what you running from? What you running from? And I said, man, I'm not running from nothing. I'm just trying to stay in shape. But as I reflect on my life at a certain point, and I realized I was running from something. I was running from the pain of my decisions. I was running from the things that had hurt me in life. I was running from the fact that my father died at the age of 28 and the pain that was there that I never dealt with. I was running from the pain of losing my grandmother when I first joined the military, not being able to come home and attend her funeral, because if anybody knows, me and my grandmother were like this. I was running from pain of broken relationships. I was running from the pain of things that had happened in my life through my travels, different decisions I've made, all the different things you can think about. I was running from it. And the fact that I was out running 5 miles a day, not just 5 miles a day, let me just break it down. This is how I realized, and this is when I realized that I was running from something, but I didn't know what at the time. I would run 5 miles in the morning. I would have PT with my organization in the morning and run another mile and a half. After work, I would go play basketball for 3 or 4 hours. Go home, go to sleep, get up and do it again. But I wasn't working on me. I was running from everything about me. See, I want to be transparent this morning because somebody is going to need to hear this, that there's things in our lives that have happened to us. We don't see them as traumatic because they may not be traumatic in the eyes of what other people see or know. But we all deal with some type of trauma from experiences that we've had. When I talk about relationships that I've been in, when I talk about things that were going wrong in a relationship, rather than sitting in those relationships and trying to fix those relationships, I ran. And when I say ran, I don't mean literally ran. I just decided that this is too much to handle. Time to move on. What was I running from? I was running from responsibility, accountability. I was running from grief. I was running from so many things that there were so many different things going on that I didn't realize until years later that I was actually running from these things. Because we mask them with so many other things to make it seem like we're okay. I'm okay. Those issues are those issues, but I'm okay. And we live in a world obsessed with movement. One of the things we always hear is keep grinding, they say. Never stop. But sometimes that hustle is just a hustle away from the things you haven't healed from. You're hustling away from the things you haven't healed from. So I want you to press pause today. Not to stop, but to check your direction. Check your direction. Not all movement is progress. Some of us are chasing goals, not because we love them, but because we're afraid of sitting still. And in that silence, that's when it's hardest. When you have to sit in silence. And as they say, the mind is the devil's playground. But when you have to sit in silence and come to the realization of what is going on with you, it's a whole nother world. Because as long as you're running, and I use my running every day because I know that's what I was doing. I was looking to fill a void that was there by any means necessary. And I talk about the running, but let's get into it. I was into drinking. I was into clubbing. I was into all the things that were stunning my growth rather than enhancing my growth. And then when you have to sit in silence, these are the things that really open your eyes to what you're running from. You start recognizing that you're a fraud. You're a fraud. You're not who they think you are. While you sit in silence, who you are reveals itself to you more than any time in your life. Then you have those thoughts of the pain I'm feeling. I haven't forgiven those people that hurt me. I haven't forgiven those people that left me. Why? What am I holding on to not forgive them? No matter what the circumstances are, why am I holding on to this? Because it's easier to hold on to it than to deal with it. So you run from it. And then the other part is, I don't even know who I am. Let's talk about that. I don't know who I am. Because I've been putting on this mask for so long that now that I got to sit in silence and figure out who I am and what's going on with me, I don't know. Through all the pain, through all the heartache, the pain, you hurt people. Let's just start with that. You heard me say, hurt people. And all the people I hurt along my way because I wasn't dealing with the fact of how hurt I was and all these different things you think about. When you sit in silence, it reveals itself. We do a lot of things to prove we're worthy, but you've always been worthy. But we find these caveats to not deal with how worthy we are because of who we are and how we exactly are in this world, that we try to find other alternatives to display how worthy we think we are to other people. We stay busy. Why do we stay busy? So we don't feel broken. We stay busy so we don't feel broken. You know, that all that time you pour into your job because your job makes you feel successful so you don't have to deal with the brokenness of who you are and what you've been through and all those type things. But at some point, you got to ask the question, is my ambition, is my drive, is it healing or is it hiding? Is my ambition and my drive, is it healing or is it hiding? In most cases, it's hiding. That's that mask, that's that facade, that's that front that we put up so nobody knows the brokenness of who we are. The hard truth, running from your pain doesn't heal you. It just prolongs it. Because no matter how far you run away from it, it's still going to be there. All those 5 miles, I got two hip replacements for all the running I did. I had to laugh about it, but I think about these things with all the basketball and all the running and all those things I did. There's consequences to your actions. With all the running I did, I got 2 hip replacements. For all the drinking and the partying I did, I've had failed relationships, failed marriages. But what I was running from was still there. And then the wake-up call. When I realized that I couldn't run no more, it was like a whole weight was lifted off the shoulders. I could look at myself and understand and starting to reveal who I was without the running. Because now I decided I'm not going to run from it, I'm going to run to it. And I'm going to run head on to these issues I'm having about, the pain and the grief of losing people at such a young age who could have impacted my life in different ways. I had to run to the point of the decisions I made that broke up relationships when I said I do, when I really didn't. I had to sit with the fact and understand that I had to run into these points of what parts I played in everything that is going on in my life up to that point. It wasn't pretty. And it shouldn't be pretty. Because the ugliness of everything that you've caused and the chaos that you've caused not only yourself but other people should never be pretty. You have to go through to get through. Stop running. I'm going to send this out to anybody and everybody who feels that they're in a position or a point in their life where you've got some untapped drama in your life. You have you haven't dealt with the grief. You haven't dealt with your miscomings or your shortcomings or anything like that. Stop running. Today. Stop running. Now, mind you, it ain't going to heal today. It's a process. The first thing you have to do is stop running. Literally and figuratively. Stop running. Because what I realized was that all the running I was doing and all the ways I was trying to avoid to face these things head on didn't make it no better. Didn't make it any better. Just prolonged the inevitable. We make decisions and we think if we avoid it, it won't come to fruition or nobody will notice it and all these things. No. Stop running. Am I healed? I'm healing. Just keep it there. I'm healing. And I'm healing from everything that I felt was broken that I didn't want to face. Because there's certain things that happen in our lives where we sit back and we wonder, why me? Sometimes we have to ask ourselves, not why me, but what now? What do I need to do to change what's going on in my life? Stop running. Face it head on. Accountability. Integrity. Stop running. Face it head on. And the last thing I will tell you, I didn't do this by myself. No how, no way. I had to go back, and I call it the basics. Something we all learned at a young age, even though we didn't want to go. Even though we felt that it was a waste of time on those Sunday mornings. I had to go back to my faith. I had to go back to the Creator and ask for help. That's all it takes. That's the first step. Stop running and start kneeling. Stop running, start praying. Stop running, start believing. We can all heal. Stop running from the healing and run to it. We're going to go ahead and wrap this up. I appreciate everybody tuning in today. I appreciate y'all. I'll be back again next week. We're going to get into some more conversations. But as I mentioned, I'm in the process of working on another podcast strictly for my life coaching. I'm just giving y'all bits and pieces right now that I'm working on. So I want y'all to bear with me. Input, insight, whatever you want to put in, I'm open to it all. I appreciate y'all. Anybody who wants to come on the show, as I mentioned, send me an email, rwcoolins@yahoo.com. Or Rodney W. Collins channel, YouTube and Facebook, 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific. We're here every Saturday morning. We'll have some more content going there. TikTok, follow me on TikTok, follow me on Facebook, follow me on Instagram. Starting to post more there, trying to expand this, get more information out there and bring it to you raw and uncut. I appreciate everybody for tuning in, and I'll see y'all again next week. As I always say, love yourself, love one another, keep your head up, and most definitely, Keep your faith in God. Stop running. Take off your running shoes. Put on your slippers. Go down on your knees. Stop running. I love y'all. I'll see y'all again next week, and I'm out. Peace.